Okay, thank you for letting me know. My mic was set to the wrong setting for some reason. Sorry about that. Okay, anyways, let's try that again. So, hello everyone, and welcome. Derp. I am totally tech savvy. But anyways, today we are trying a new type of stream. I'm gonna do some basic Japanese. For those of you guys who don't know, I once was a student teacher of Japanese at my college. I have been to Japan twice to study, and also once just for vacation. And I have been private tutoring people in Japanese for a long time now, so I have some experience with it. This is going to be a little different layout than obviously I can do in a person and or personal class and stuff, but we'll do the best we can. I'll also give you some resources and stuff at the end that I'll recommend for actually practicing stuff on your own. If this goes over well, I'll also do more of these lessons over time too. Today we are just going to focus on like basic words and grammar and stuff. I'm not going to actually go over like any of the alphabets. That would probably be a lesson in its own. So if I do more, I'll cover them. But I'm gonna, I guess, talk briefly about Japanese as a whole. There are 3 alphabets: hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Thank you for the host and raid. So hiragana is basically the base Japanese alphabet. Katakana is used for imported words, and kanji is based off of the Chinese alphabet, but it's used to help differentiate words, I guess. And hiragana was made to make it easier to read specifically. So yeah, I have my lovely whiteboard here. Also, another thing to note, Japanese language is a lot of different levels of hierarchy in how you talk. Yeah, kanji is not something you should start learning pretty early. It's definitely more difficult. Hello. But yeah, so we're just gonna go over, I guess first we'll go over some basic like greetings and talk a little bit about them. It's important to remember that Japanese has a lot of different levels of hierarchy to it. So there's multiple ways to say stuff, even simple stuff because of that. So for instance, we have Ohayo gozaimasu, or Ohayo. Ohayo gozaimasu is the more polite way to say it. Ohayo is what you would say with friends. Pretty simple, it's just good morning. So konnichiwa is interesting. Because for one thing, you'll notice if you actually look at the way it's written in hiragana, it's not ha, or it's not wa at the end, it's actually ha. Ha is a particle that gets pronounced as wa several times when it's used as a particle. So technically, konnichiwa is like an incomplete sentence. Because it's kind of like saying this morning, but or this day. But specifically, it is used just to be like hello or good afternoon. Generally, this is if you're not sure on the time or whatever, you're just greeting somebody, konnichiwa is the good one to go with. I'm being attacked by a cat. Just like konnichiwa, konbanwa has the same thing where it's actually ha at the end and not wa, but it's pronounced wa. So I'll write it as wa here. So it's in this one, it's literally this evening, but it is used to say good evening. So when you're meeting somebody in the evening. Okay, so we also have, of course, oyasumi nasai. Just like with Ohayo, oyasumi nasai is the polite form. Oyasumi is, it's not actually that rude, but it's still what you'd say like when you're more comfortable with the person. and that's good night. Now, specifically, the difference between like good evening and good night, oyasumi is literally like please have a good rest, where good evening indicates that you're probably gonna see more of each other and you won't just be like running off. So yeah, uh oyasumi nasai or oyasumi is what you'd say like when you know you're going to like be parting ways and probably going to bed. Let's see. I guess we'll give another goodbye. So a lot of times when these things get romanized, they leave letters out or write letters differently. I'm writing them how they would actually be written in Japanese. So, sayonara, which I think most people actually know because of songs like Domo Ara, or it's a very common phrase. That's I totally went to the wrong song. But sayonara is it's a way to say goodbye. There are a lot of different ways to say goodbye. Specifically, though, sayonara is what you would say if you guys are not going to see each other again for a while. It doesn't mean like goodbye forever. It just means you're not planning on like seeing them tomorrow, kind of thing. And it's also formal enough. We can go with a little more informal here right now. So this is the kind of stuff you would say to your friends. So literally this is like saying like mata ne. It's literally like seeing you again, see you again. But it's basically see you later is the easy translation for it. You'll notice the ending is a little different too. I can spell lies. All right, and then Johnny is another like informal one too to say goodbye. What is spelling? Yeah, no, English spelling is. Oh, I guess I'm okay with it when I'm actually thinking. I'm honestly a little nervous about this because I've never tried to do this online like this before. But yeah, my Japanese spelling is fine at least. But yeah, so Johnny is something you would say to your friends like when you're going to leave. Uh, and the reason it's a little different than like sayonara or matane is it basically indicates that you're not sure when you're going to see them next. It's kind of literally like saying, well then, and leaving, so it's got a different enunciate like meaning. This is why there's so many different levels of hierarchy in the stuff you say. It really matters. I will say, if you are a foreigner in Japan, they do not look down harshly on you if you get the honorifics and stuff wrong. It's good to at least keep polite and not do too much slang. But when I went over there the first year, I had so much jet lag, I didn't realize I was speaking slang to one of the teachers the entire time. And when I recovered and started talking to her polite, she got actually upset because she's like, I thought we were friends. Like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so these are like your really basic greetings. So to reiterate, ohayo gozaimasu, which is the formal version, or ohayo, which is the casual version. Yes, like the state. Konnichiwa is, hello, good afternoon. So if you don't know the time or whatever, it's a good one to say, else you say it during the afternoon. Konbanwa, good evening. Oyasumi nasai, good night, is polite. Oyasumi is more casual. Sayonara is for like not sure when you're going to see them again, goodbye. Matane is for friends that you plan on seeing again, probably shortly. And jane is for friends you're not sure when you're going to see them again, but it's still more informal. So that makes sense, guys? Let me know if I go too fast too. If there's no questions, I'm going to continue on with some more. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, whew. Cleared my chalkboard. By the way, guys, I'm just using Photoshop to do this because I'm lazy. All right. So one of the most important words to know in Japanese is sumimasen. Oh, that's okay. You can lurk. So sumimasen has a couple different like ways of interpretation depending on how you're using it. But it's a very good one to know because it's a pretty standard. So like if you're trying to get somebody's attention, you can say sumimasen. If you bump into somebody, you can say sumimasen. You make a mistake, you can say sumimasen. So it can be excuse me, I'm sorry, or I'm sorry. It's a very good phrase to know. I used it a lot in Japan. In fact, I think they were like, why does she keep saying that? I'm like, sorry, I'm so sorry, I mess it up. But yeah, so it's a very good phrase to know. Sumimasen. Oh, I never actually mentioned this about pronunciation, so I guess I probably should have mentioned that, and I'll do it now. Japanese pronunciation is kind of cool because it's pretty straightforward. If it looks like it's pronounced a way, it probably is. We haven't actually got any to the words with baby twos yet, but when we do, I'll explain that one because that's a little different how they pronounce it. I don't even know. Okay, yeah, I do have one here that has it. Okay, I have a list of words I'm going through, guys. But yeah, so first off, the enunciation or the what is that called? Mm, I'm blanking on the English word for it, but it's like the difference between kagome and uh, kagome and kagome. Kagome is the English pronunciation. Kagome is the Japanese. The emphasis, that's the word. The emphasis is actually on a different syllable. It's on the second syllable. So that's why it sounds a little weird. I never really think about this because I just say. But to me, like if you look at it, it's literally, if you break it down, su, mi, ma, sen. It's pronounced just like that. N is the only letter of the alphabet that can be alone too, by the way. Just the N, yeah. Everything else is technically like su, mi, ma, sen is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 symbols to write it. Okay. All right. Another good one to know. I want to capitalize this. Hi is yes. It's a nice way to hello RT. It's a nice way to, you know, when somebody asks you a question. Oh, well, I mean consonants. Yes, thank you for that. Vowels can be alone too. The only consonant that can be alone is N. And it doesn't ever start a word. It's just used as like an introduction kind of thing. Yeah, no. Please, if I make mistakes because I'm nervous, to correct me. If you want to be a little more informal with that, I don't like this. I missed a cap. Like, for instance, if somebody asks you if you want to go somewhere. Yes, I have glasses. I told you I mastered how to put glasses on my avatar, so I have glasses for this lesson. But yeah, so iyo is versus hi, which is can be a little more formal and polite. So you can use hi for polite. It's fine. Iyo is something you'd say more with your friends, but it would be like if I'm like, oh, hey, you want to go for a walk today? You could obviously say hi, yes, but you could also say iyo. Sounds good. It's also a little more enthusiastic of an answer, but you wouldn't use it in a professional setting. You would use it for like friends and stuff. Another good one. Yeah. Why is there a fly on my tablet? All right. So ie is a way to say no. Basically, it's the most simple way to say no. So it works in both formal and informal things. Japanese is an interesting language where it's rare that you actually directly say no. Usually when people ask you something, instead of saying no, like if you don't want to do it, you say, well, that's a little like it comes off like where you're not outright saying no, but you're indicating I don't really want to. Um, even well, Japanese, here to Japanese. A is more polite, which or is more informal, which I was actually going to go over next. So that's good that you know that though. Yeah, hi is the hi for yes is like it can be used in formal situations. Stupid fly. White people's Japanese. I mean, to be fair, it's really rare. Nobody ever expects when they find out they're getting a Japanese teacher for it to be a white girl with 36 inches of blonde hair. So, but as T's brought out, I'll go over this too. Another way to say yes, it's a little, I guess it's a little softer, is eh. And it's like, it's not particularly formal per se, but it's something that you see like a lot of, I guess you'd say like women using more than males. It's not like a guy can't use it, but because it sounds softer, I think is the easier way to say it. But it's also not as certain as hi. It's sort of one of those like you're answering yes, but maybe you don't necessarily know or believe it, or like it's supposed to be, but you're not sure why kind of thing. So it's a little, even though it's a yes, it's a little more hesitant of a yes. Yeah, that's the next one I was gonna go over. Bad. We also have now, I know I just told you this one never stands alone, but here's an interesting one. So Japanese has a lot of like sounds that they use to indicate words rather than words. So this is actually more of a sound than a word, but if somebody asks you something, if you're close with them, you can go, like yes. Usually you nod your head or look at them excitedly. It's basically like saying yep, because it's a lot more casual, but it's more of a sound than it is an actual like word. That's why it looks weird. And don't worry, here's another weird one. Ooh, what did I do? Yeah, contextual phrases might be a good way to put it. All right, so just like you can also, if somebody asks you something, you'd be like make the noise just a little longer. Yeah, we do have stuff like that in English. Like yeah. So it's very similar to that. But would be like nope. It's once again a lot more casual. It's not considered rude, but you would only say it to like people you're close with. So it's not like a harsh no. I know I put nope because it sounds more casual, but that's just it. It's more casual. So it could even be like an example of when you'd use it if I was like, hey, have you ever been to Washington? And well, I know a lot of my friends haven't, so they could be like, nope. Doesn't mean that they don't want to go or they don't like it. It's just kind of a casual way to answer it. It's still kind of friendly. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of hierarchy stuff going on with Japanese, so that's what makes it a little more intricate. I mean, in English we have our own honorifics and professionalism versus casual and slang and stuff like that, but we don't really, I guess, count on it in our daily life that much. We just know. Like we don't have to learn a separate set of words to be in an office or something. We don't have anything that actually lines up with Keigo. I lost my mouse, guys. Sorry. I guess I'll add this one here too. Yeah, the hierarchy makes it really complex. Keigo, which I just mentioned, is like the highest of the highest, like really super formal. And it was to the point when I was in Japan, I was supposed to be practicing it and learning it for a test, and none of the other students my age knew it, so I couldn't practice it. I ended up going to a like a little mini mall over there, and there's an elevator, and the elevator attendant was using Keigo, so I asked her if I could practice with her. So I rode the elevator for like half an hour, practicing with some random Japanese woman. But yeah, you don't really use keigo unless you're in really super formal. And as a foreigner, like the business is nice to use it in, but they don't expect you to know it. So I think that's all for the different ways to say like yes and no, at least the ones I'm going to go over today. All right. So, arigatou gozaimasu. I will also, there's also domo arigato, which you can say domo arigato gozaimasu. So arigato is like the casual thing that you would say to friends and stuff, just like thanks. Arigato gozaimasu is the more formal. Domo arigato or domo arigato gozaimasu has about the same meaning. It's basically like domo arigato is like really thank you. So it's still a little more casual, but domo arigato gozaimasu is thank you very much, very politely. So yeah, I'm sure you guys have all domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Yeah, from that song, that's where that comes in. I didn't actually really hear anyone in Japan ever use domo arigato. I heard them use like domo, which is like the short way to say that. So I guess I'll put that down too. So that would be the domo you can use in front of it. I'm just gonna call it many things. It's older, but they still use it to an extent. Like you'll hear people go domo, and it's still saying thank you. But the biggest difference between domo and arigato in general is domo is like emphasizing like a lot of things, where arigato is just like thank you. So like you would use domo in situations where they've done more, I guess is a better way to put it. So like holding a door open, you could just say arigato gozaimasu. But like if they help you carry all of your stuff up 13 flights of stairs, like domo arigato gozaimasu would be a better one. Or even just domo if they're a friend. So, but yeah, you don't really hear domo arigato too much anymore. Because, yeah, that's a little more old. Japanese is weird too, because obviously with the time changing, there's terminology and stuff that aren't used. There's even kanji that aren't used. I always joke when I was translating Seiyuki, because there is a lot of kanji that isn't used anymore that they use in that one. I joke that Hawkeye talks in kanji because he uses kanji like nobody even uses. Like he used the kanji for naruhodo, which is like I see, and like I had never seen that kanji before, but I knew what kind of words he said, so I'm like, I bet you that's it. And sure enough, checked it in my dictionary and it was right. But yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that isn't used, so. You see it a lot in like older light novels or manga or stuff that has to do with older periods of time, but yeah. All right, so any questions over these? I'm going to go ahead and reiterate them one more time. Sumimasen is excuse me or I'm sorry. Hai is yes. Iyo is sounds good, which you use with friends. Ie is no. You really don't use no much, period, but it is okay to use in formal language. E is yes, but a little more hesitant. N is yes, but like what you'd say with friends. N is no, but what you say with friends. Arigato gozaimasu is polite. Arigato is more casual. And domo, you can combine with domo arigato or domo arigato gozaimasu, or it can be used by itself, and they both mean thanks. Right. I'm going to go ahead and delete these and go into the next one. Okay. All right. So, e is how you'd say it. It's literally like two E's. So, the letter E in Japanese is pronounced e, by the way. The letter I in Japanese is pronounced E. Surprise! But yeah, so it's kind of like it's just more like a sound. Hi. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. Yeah, well, they put the emphasis on the second syllable, so. I always hate how they translate this one. I gotta put a note there. So, hajimemashite. Hajimemashite. Is literally something that you say to somebody the first time you meet them. Literal translation is, this is my first time meeting you. It gets translated a lot as like, how do you do? Or nice to meet you. So, we'll go with that. But so this would be like if you're being introduced to somebody, this is like what you'd say. So it's still like, even when you meet in the US, I'm going to change that to nice to meet you. I like that translation better because that makes more sense, I think. And generally, you wouldn't say nice to meet you multiple times, right? You meet a person once and you're good, right? But yeah, it uses the verb to begin or to start, and that's kind of where it is. So it's used for a first meeting. Well, yeah, maybe if you have memory problems. So this is another like tricky one. Dozo yoroshiku or yoroshiku. Okay, I'm going to translate it like that. So it is very common to use yoroshiku or dozo yoroshiku when you're first meeting a person as well. But literally, it's like saying, I'm in your hands from now on, I'm in your care. It's basically lowering yourself beneath them. It's a very common thing with hierarchy in Japanese. It doesn't mean that you're saying, like, I suck, you're so much better. It just means that, hey, I'm new, please take care of me. Teach me the ropes and stuff like that. So dozo yoroshiku is what you generally say when you're first meeting somebody, especially it's very polite. Yoroshiku is the more slang form of it, or the more casual form of it. But this one is not limited to first meetings. Please take care of me. Yeah, I could see it. Like, I'm in your care. Please take care of me. They're both valid translations because they both mean the same thing. But yoroshiku would be something you could say with friends and stuff too. So like an example of when you'd use it, even though it's not a first meeting, if I was like, hey, can somebody help me move? And friends were like, yeah, I'll help you move, move, and we'll help you move boxes. So then I'd be like, thank you, yoroshiku, I'm in your care. So obviously, it's not my first time meeting them. I know these people, but I'm indicating that, they're helping me. And it's obviously, thank you, of course, is a word to say too. Yeah, well, I always upload all of my videos to YouTube after like 24 hours. I have to wait 24 hours. I have an archive on YouTube. It's on my About page to find the link to it. So it will be up there, and the video on demand will be on Twitch for like 2 weeks, I think is what they leave it up. But I always record these, so don't worry. I have copies of it. All right, so. Now, you guys have all probably heard this one. Itadakimasu! It's another one that gets translated weirdly. Literally, it's like, I guess I'll translate it like this. So, itadakimasu is literally like, the literal translation is like, I humbly accept this food. So it's a lot more complex than, thank you for the food. But it's like, yeah, when people hand you food or when you start eating a food, it's the polite thing to say before. Now, generally, you don't go to a restaurant and say it, like, especially when you're an adult. It's actually considered strange, not in a bad way, but it's like, oh wow, that's super polite. Dang, you're still that polite. But obviously, a lot of people outgrow it. But like, yeah, if somebody makes you food, or even somebody takes you out for food, then maybe that, like, it's okay to say it then, and it's not bad to say it even if you go by yourself and buy food. It's just like I said, it's one of those. They'll be like, wow, you're so polite. Because it kind of, people grow out of it. But yeah, like, if you go to a friend's house and they make you food, it's a good time to say it. If somebody brings you a snack or something at work, it's a good time to say it. Itadakimasu is the polite form of it. You'll occasionally hear like itadaki, which is a more slang casual form of it. I probably hear it more in like video games and anime than I actually do in real life. But yeah, it's basically the same thing where like I'm gonna eat this. I'm taking this food. Thanks. Yeah, I was gonna say I can think of several video games where I heard a character like "itadaki," but oh, we got a storm coming. I think it should be fine though. Usually you would say it before you eat it. You would probably just say like thank you when you first get it. But if you're gonna eat it right away, you could say it too. I'm also translating this one a little differently. Now this one, it's actually not that weird to say this one like out in public or anything. Okay, so this is gochi so sama deshita. So literal translation is like it was a feast. It was a delicious feast, which is why I'm using it was delicious as the translation here. It's used after you finish food. So even when you're out eating, it's okay to say it. Like it's not considered like super weird or polite, you know, like wow, you're saying that. Generally in the case of like when you're eating out, it would be like if food was really super yummy, like it was just amazing. I said this a lot when we were in Japan for vacation because we went to a lot of yummy food places. We kept wandering off of where like the normal tourists went because we were following Japanese. Basically, their equivalent of like Yelp for it's called Tabelog. We were using that to find good food places to eat. So we did that a lot. But yeah, Gochi so sama is still polite. Gochi so sama deshita is actually a little more polite. The biggest difference, I guess, is how polite you want to be. But even just saying gochi so sama, you're not going to be considered rude. The sama ending on it is what makes it polite. Deshita is more polite because you're indicating you're literally finishing off the sentence. I didn't mention this yet, but I guess I'll go ahead and do it now since it came up with this. Japanese structure for their sentences is they end the sentence in the verb. In this case, the verb is actually des, or deshita is the past tense of it. Yeah, des is a verb. It has no meaning on its own per se, but it can make a sentence into a sentence basically. So like, watashi wa fon is not a sentence, but watashi wa fon desu is a sentence. Watashi wa kojika desu. I am kojika. So yeah, like that makes it finalizes it as a sentence. Not to say that you necessarily have to say des, especially when you're with friends or when you're trailing off and stuff, but politely you would always end your sentences with a verb of some sort. So yeah, gochi so sama deshita, by adding the deshita to it, you're just making it a more complete sentence. So it's a little more polite. But gochi so sama is fine to say. The casual way, which I didn't put here, but the casual way to say that would just be gochi so. And yeah, like I said, it's literally like, it's a feast. It was a feast. Yummy, yum, 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 yum. Which is why it was delicious. So yeah, once again, you would say this after eating. You would definitely say it if you're eating food that somebody gave you. It's very polite to say it like that. You would definitely say it like even if it's like a snack they gave you, even if they didn't make it, if it's something that was offered to you. And you can say it at a restaurant too, especially if you're like, oh, I'm so full. That was so yummy. All right. Any questions over any of this stuff? I'm going to go ahead and reiterate it one more time for you guys so you can get the pronunciation. Hajimemashite. Dozo yoroshiku. Or just yoroshiku. Itadakimasu. Gochiso sama deshita. Gochiso sama. Okay. Woo! All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is actually you guys probably wouldn't really use it a lot in Japanese, but they always teach it like really early on, so I'm going to teach it too. if you're staying at a place or like at a friend's house, or you're staying at like even some kind of hotel or something, or like especially if you're at somebody's home, it's very polite to kind of say these things, and you'll see them a lot in like manga and anime too. And this is where I have to talk about the little baby twos. All right. Itekimasu is literally like I'm leaving and returning. So it's a combination of two Japanese verbs actually, which is going and coming. So you're literally saying I'm heading out, but indicating that you'll be returning. So this is a very common thing to say when people are like heading out and, at their house. Like you would say this if you're at a like if you're leaving a restaurant, unless you're like a regular there, you're not going to be like itekimasu. They'd be like, what? Why? And you wouldn't even probably necessarily say it at work, even if it's a place you go to often. This is going to be more like something you'd say at a home or like a friend's house that you go to often. Or like I said, if you're staying with somebody, like I had a host mother when I was in Japan, so I would say this to her. Or I also, during the weekends, I stayed with the host family. During the weekdays, I stayed at a dorm. Or, well, technically it wasn't a dorm. I stayed at a girl's apartment who was another student that they set up as a dorm. And then the second year, I stayed at a house set up for grad students. So that was weird. But either way, there were other people there. So I would say this stuff to them because, we were living together for that time being. So, iterashai is actually literally please go and come back. But it's basically, have a safe trip. It's indicating that you're going to see them again. Yeah, it's the older sister meme. Uh, Interesting enough, you notice, you see how there's double consonants in this? And I mentioned that you can't have any consonant be by itself except for N. Now, I'm going to explain that. So in Japanese, there is a letter called tsu. Tsu on its own is still pronounced tsu. There's actually like a bit of a T there. It's tsu instead of su. I don't know like how exactly to teach it. I just picked it up because I am a nerd and watch way too much anime and video games in Japanese, so that's where I got it from. But like yeah, like when you start learning it, instead of they also have, su, but it's su. It's got a little harder sound at the beginning because there's the T there. But specifically, this letter has something it can do that makes it interesting. What it does is it indicates like a pause in the word when you're saying it, which is oftentimes romanized as double consonant. So literally, the way that this word, the first itekimasu is written is maybe that's too small. That's too big. Ah, there we go. But the tsu is written small. And yeah, basically it indicates you would take a pause there, which is why it's itekimasu. Writing it as a double consonant, romanized, works very well because you were more inclined to take that pause because of the double consonant. So that's why they do that. It's probably the easiest way to explain it. So yeah, both of these have baby tsus, as I call them, little tsus, in there. And by the way, I'm saying baby tsu. I'm sorry. I tend to say it really fast, but that's what it is, like baby small. Like even if you were to write it in Japanese, let me change my font really quick. Oops. See? It's littler. Yeah, he's a little boy. Little small guy. But yeah, so like I said, we're not going to cover hiragana per se today. Like I wanted to point that out. So when you see stuff, because I mentioned that, it doesn't use syllables. So like, yeah, it's kind of like random. But yeah, that's what it is. If this lesson goes over well, which I think it seems to be, I'll probably do some more and I'll cover hiragana on a different lesson. Okay. I'll go ahead and continue then. Oh my God, you stupid fly. I keep losing my mouse too. Okay, so this is what you say to leave. Ah. Okay, so next up is tadaima, which literally is like I'm home or I've returned. So, you would say that when you come back from a place. And okaeri nasai is literally like, you safely returned, but it's like welcome back. I don't actually know StarCraft. Tashi ga kita. That's a My Hero reference. But yeah, perfect timing. Look who's back. But yeah, so this is literally it's using the verb to return in here is what it is. So I know it's written differently, and we'll do that when we actually deal with verbs. You didn't save. Oh my gosh, you have to save every couple seconds. I hope we don't lose power then, because we're pretty close to each other. Oh yeah. So with that, since Ray just mentioned this, okaeri can be insured. Like instead of doing okaeri nasai, which is the polite form, you can just say okaeri, which is what you would use for like casual people. It's interesting to note that itekimasu, iterashai, and tadaima don't really have second forms. Yeah, just keep saving. When I do work, I do like one stroke and then hit save all the time. I'm a very big saver. But yeah, so with okaeri nasai, you can also just say okaeri. But you shouldn't do it like if it's not somebody you're really close with, it'd still be okaeri nasai. So like even with my host family, I would still say okaeri nasai. I'm close enough with them. In fact, when we went to Japan to just visit, I went out to dinner with my host mother. But I would still not feel comfortable using okaeri with her because for one thing, she is, older than me, and so elder respect. And I mean, I don't think she would care, but to me, it's like I should show her respect. The age thing is super important too in Japan. Respect your elders. That's a very big thing in Asian cultures. And in America, we say, okay, boomer. But yeah, so those are the basics of that. All right, let me see. So, are there any questions over these? I'm going to reiterate them one more time too. Itekimasu, itterashai, tadaima, okaeri, nasai, okaeri. When you get more comfortable speaking Japanese, you'll be able to like say it faster. They I don't want to say they slur because that's not quite true, but it sounds like some of the words run together because of how fast they say them. But I mean, it's the same thing with English. I know I generally talk pretty fast, so yeah, it wasn't hard for me to talk fast in Japanese either. But okay, now we're gonna go over some more simple vocab and learn how to make some sentences. That sounds fun, right? So I mentioned earlier that sumimasen can be used to say excuse me, right? Ano can also be that. It's a hesitant. It's like ano. It's more of a sound than an actual word, so it's not seen as impolite. So don't worry about that. But like if you could be like ano sumimasen, you hear that together a lot. It's like excuse me, or even just ano. Generally, if you're not saying it with sumimasen, you're probably saying it to somebody you know or are on the same like level as. Yeah, onomatopoeia. Japan is very big on onomatopoeias. A lot of their words for verbs and stuff are actually onomatopoeias. My first specialization in translating was actually onomatopoeias, so I went to grammar and stuff afterwards. Gonna give you a few words so we can actually learn some stuff. Ima. Now. As in the time. Ah. G after a number makes it o'clock. I guess we should probably also cover numbers then too. There's one more thing I want to cover. Let me go over some of these, give you some more time words first, too. All right, so non. Just non by itself has to be connected to another word. So for instance, nanji would be what time? It makes it into a sentence, which is why I put the dots here. I guess I'll go ahead and give you this too. Nani by itself is just what by itself. So you can say it by itself too. Nani. You see that, hear that a lot too. Yeah, exactly. Go go. PM as in time again. Nani the fuck, yeah. Goes in. AM. So to note with this, it is actually very common to eliminate the gogo or gozen in a sentence in Japanese. They exist. PM and AM do exist. But a lot of times, like when you're talking time, you're probably going to get it, especially because it is not uncommon for them to use more like military time. So, instead of 1 p.m., they'd say 13 o'clock. But even if they're using normal time, a lot of it would depend on context. So, like for instance, if I'm asking you what time it is now, you don't need to say go because I'm obviously aware it's already the afternoon. But I had people asking me what time this stream was prior to it starting, and like in the last few days, and then yes, that would be a time when I could be like, it's at 1 p.m. I mean, most people would assume that it would be at 1 p.m. and not 1 a.m. So I probably wouldn't have to use it, but I would be inclined to use it because just in case. There isn't really an easy way to differentiate with time zones per se. You would just say like, a specific time. Yeah, 8 or 9. Like if you're looking at a more standard time, like 8 or 9, like Zill said, that would be a good time when AM and PM would come in handy for specifically telling them when something starts. we're gonna actually start looking at sentence structure here. So that's why I gave you some time words, and then we're gonna go over numbers really quick. But any questions over this before I clear the board? Yeah, because like I said, they don't really use it in Japanese, so I can see why she'd have an issue with it in Duolingo. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and reiterate the pronunciation. Ano, ima, ji, nan, nani, gogo, and gozen. So, of course, the next thing we need is numbers. I think a lot of people probably know basic numbers in Japanese, but I'm going to go ahead and write them out anyways because you never know, and I'm not going to assume. I can spell. How many hours are there in a day? 24, right? Yeah. Okay. You wouldn't need Isai. Okay. Shrink it a little. Wow. Wrong button. All right, since somebody mentioned it, zero is usually just zero in Japanese. It can also be rei. If you guys have ever seen Meitante Conan or Detective Conan, that's a big thing that comes up with the character Amuro Rei. So, yeah. It doesn't matter though. Like you can still say 9 p.m. and they understand what you're meaning, so it's not that big of a thing. But there's a reason I'm only giving you the first 10 too. So, ichi, ni, san, shi, or yon, ga, roku, shichi, or nana, hachi, kyu, or ku, ju. And that's the first 10. So with 4, 7, and 9, the reason that they have two different ways to read them is because shi is also the word for death. Shichi still has to do with death. And Q is like pain. Or Ku is like pain. So they have two different variations of readings. With that said, you generally still use one over another. So Shigatsu, for instance, is April, the 4th month. You still use shi there. So it doesn't necessarily mean you can't use the number. Some of them are considered unlucky because of that. But when you start getting into counters, which we're definitely not going over today, oh my gosh, counters are insane. But that's where these come into play more. Yeah, counters tend to change whatever sounds better. Okay, so these are your first 10 numbers. Now, if you want to go higher, for instance, if you want to go to 13, you can do some math here. 13 is literally 10 plus 3, right? So in Japanese, it is Jusan. 10 plus 3. I want to do 25. It's going to be technically 2. So this one makes less sense. plus 10 plus 5. Because obviously, mathematically, that makes no sense. That does not equal that. That equals 17. But that's how you write it in Japanese. So it's ni, ju, go. So when you're going to the higher numbers, you take the 10 and you add to it. So you add an actual word to it. So for 11 through 19, it's just 10. But when you start going to like 20 and higher, you have to put the other number. So it's like 2 10s, 3 10s. So you have to put the number like 2 or 3 in front of it. Does that make sense? But yeah, that's how they say it. Obviously, when you get to 100 and stuff, you have other numbers. 100 is 100. Yeah, 2 times 10 plus the last number is also a good way to think about it. It's literally, I'm not thinking about this mathematical equation wise. I'm just thinking it says it's 2 10s. 20 is 2 10s. 40 is 4 10s. So now that we have some numbers, are there any questions before I start combining this stuff with time? I'll go ahead and say the pronunciations once again. Ichi, ni, son, shi, yon, go, roku, shichi, nana, hachi, kyu, ku, ju, zero. Yeah, except for obviously since small numbers can go before the big numbers, it's not always true. Okay, so now that we have some numbers and time. Yeah, exactly. 2 isn't bigger than 10. Okay, so if you're trying to ask the exact time, like what time is it? Ima, nanchi desu ka? I forgot an N there. Sorry. Now I'm typoing Japanese. Woo! There we go. Nanji desu ka? So this is what I was talking about with the nan. You combine it with the ji and it becomes what time, literally. So like I said, Japanese sentence structure. Specifically, let me actually write out Japanese sentence structure. It's subject, topic, verb, with particles in between it. That's the structure of the Japanese sentence. So, for instance, if we go with the sentence, I will read many books. Okay, I'm gonna actually use my brush here so I can just kind of draw on the screen. I will read many books. I love reading. Okay, so watashi is the subject. Yeah, my handwriting's atrocious. Hon is the topic. Books. Yomimasu is the verb. Obviously, in English, we have subject, verb, topic. So it's a little different. Now, these two are particles. And this one is just an adjective. So they don't really count into the structure per se. But yeah, so that's basically how the Japanese sentence structure works. So with this one, we don't actually have a subject here. This would be the topic, though. You don't always have to have a subject with Japanese, by the way. Especially when you're talking to a person and you have been talking to them for a while now. Or like they know you. Like you don't always have to say watashi wa like when you're talking about yourself over and over and over again. So. Oh yeah, the Romanji looks weird. I don't honestly write in Romanji much, so I'm like, I had to think about it. Oh, I just did that. So, in cases where there is no actual verb, des becomes the verb. It conjugates like a normal verb. It has no real meaning, but besides to end a sentence. I know in Korean they have like iseo, which is about the same, but I don't think we have an equivalent in English. Yeah, with the subject, if you're having a one-on-one conversation, you don't really need it unless you're talking about something that's not in there. But you can also, like, even if you're talking about something, like, say I'm talking about my cat, Arata is his name. Arata. So I wouldn't have to just be like, Arata wa, every time I say a sentence. I bring it up one time, Arata wa neko desu. Arata's a cat. Totemo moshiroi desu. He is very interesting. I don't have to keep saying arata wa the entire time. It's implied. So a lot of the time the subject is implied, which is why you don't need it. But yeah, so that's how Japanese sentence structure works. So, we're going to go ahead and keep looking at that. Okay. So, ima nanji desu ka? What time is it right now? There's a couple ways to respond. Ima, I guess I should put that in parentheses, is not necessary because they've already indicated that they want to know the time right now. If you want to put it, you can. It doesn't necessarily sound awkward. It just sounds more like emphasis if you use it, or like you're a beginner Japanese user, which, most of you guys probably are. So go ahead, somebody, and give me a time in English first. It doesn't actually have to be the real time. I don't care what time it is. 2:05. Oh, it actually is the real time. Okay, cool. We'll go ahead and do that. So, we're going to do 2:05 p.m. first. All right. So if I ask you, ima nanji desu ka? Zil could answer. All right. Niji go gogo desu. Or gogo niji go. You can actually put the gogo at the beginning too. Actually kind of sounds funny at the end because you got go 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 go. Yeah. But that's basically niji is the 2 o'clock. That's something we didn't cover yet either. When you're putting time, as you notice, go ahead and write another thing for the time. This is the part that gets a G. The o'clock part, because like we say 2 o'clock. Now, obviously, you don't say it's 2 o'clock in 5 minutes, but that's how they say it to indicate it's time. It would be niji. You would put the G there. Then you would say the time next. You could literally say it was gofun, which is 5 minutes, but niji go is fine. You don't have to indicate that it's 2 o'clock and 5 minutes. You can just say it's 2 o'clock, 5. And it's understood as 5:02 or 2:05. And then obviously this is the go-go part. So that's why, because in the US we tend to put it after, or in English you do that, but you can technically go PM 2052. So you could say go-go, niju go des. That all make sense? All right. Well, that's like saying there's 20 there. That's not even a full sentence, because that's just 2 5-minute des. Go is afternoon. Go zen is morning. All right. Somebody else want to give me a different time? I'll make you guys translate it this time. That's a tornado warning. That's okay. I'm far enough away from the windows. But if my power goes out, that's why. Sorry, guys. We've had some really bad weather here lately. Okay. I guess I'm going to give you time. So we're going to say now. That's somebody's computer going off. I don't even know where. Be quiet, computer. Oh, okay. There we go. We can do that. 9:46. That's a good one. Okay. All right. We're going to go with 9:46. Okay. So I'm going to make you guys translate it for me this time. So what is the first part you need? All right. Yep. Q. All right. What comes next? My hint is to look at that sentence up there. What comes after the number? What do we got to say next? Nope, not quite yet. No. Before we say the minutes, what do we have to say? Yep, G. QG. Yeah, the number wise, I already got the number, so yeah. Yep, there's the siren. Yeah, QG, good job, guys. All right, now what do we need next? Somebody already said it, but I'll make you guys say it again because I'm mean. Sorry if you hear the tornado siren in the background. I know I sound like I'm living so dangerously. Yeah, you do that, Zill. Stay safe. Gozen would probably be after this or before QG. So right now all we have is 9 o'clock. But it's 9:46, so we need some minutes in there, right? Yeah, you do. You say 40 and 6. So, do you guys remember how to say that? I know a lot of you guys are probably taking notes during this or going to watch the VOD later to take notes. Sorry, I don't have like a sheet I can send you guys. So go ahead and give it to me in Japanese. I have some faith in you. Close. 4, 10, 6. There you go. 46. Now what can we say? That's okay. This is your first time. You guys are doing fine. I'm be more surprised if I was getting completely right answers every single time. Yep. Then here comes goes in. And now, yep, des. You need to have des at the end. Woo! There you guys go. You made a sentence. Kyuji 46 goes in des. Or you could also say goes in 90 46 des. 9:46 a.m. It's 9:46 a.m. Yeah. So it's gonna take because it's such a different structure than English, it does take some getting used to. In my case, honestly, it's actually kind of funny. I studied a bunch of Germanic and other European languages prior to Japanese. So I find that in some cases the structure is more similar to theirs. And English takes languages and beats them up in dark alleys. We all know that. Jew, it definitely takes some time, but it's not too bad. You can also write Jew as if it's easier for you guys. I'm gonna get rid of. You can also write Jew as J. The reason that I keep writing it like that, how I'm writing it though, is I'm trying to make it easier for spelling. But so technically, it is G U U, but it's like with a small suit. It's a little u. I made that way too little, but it's a little u. And because of that, it becomes actually Jew. But there is no actual letter for Jew, so it's actually tends to be romanized like that. Because it's G combined with U. So that's why I keep writing it like that, if that's confusing you guys. Yeah, there's a lot of smalls. So that's why if I do another one, I'll probably just cover hiragana all in that one because there's a lot to figure out with that. Usually when I start teaching, I start with the alphabet, but I was like, I don't know if that would be too boring for the starting one for this. So yeah. Yeah, English. Honestly, learning English as a second language, I think is incredible, period, because it's so different from every other languages. Sorry, I do not allow links unless you're a regular. Okay. We'll go ahead and... So that's some basic sentence structure. You guys can now ask what time it is and answer. Let me give you some more stuff. Yeah, Nightbot's a good boy. Okay. And actually, you can say I am so and so because you know des. Like I said, des is a verb. It has no real meaning on its own, but it can be kind of construed as it is, am, are, whatever. When you put it with something, des is always an ending. Des. So it's actually obviously desu, and you can say desu. That's not a problem. In Japanese, it is very common to, because I know I just keep saying des. It's very common to, when it ends in like a u, like a u like that, to just kind of not super say it like really loud. You like soften it. So that's why it's I'm saying desu, but I'm saying it like des because I'm making the ooh almost like gone. But that's a very standard thing. All right, so I'll give you some other words so we can make some more questions too. Namae. This one actually sounds almost like what the word is. Yeah, des uwu for sure. Name. Sai. Years old. Trying to think what else is good. I don't know if this one is actually useful for most of you. Oops. This is like a nensei is like grade in school. Yeah, grade, exactly. So I'll go ahead and give you the school words too. I'm actually going to give you the two different variations with this, so I'm going to write it like this. Ah, I hit the wrong thing. So those have to be separate because they're actually said a little differently. Yeah, literally, Daigaku is the big school. Okay, so here are some more things to help you write more sentences. So with your numbers and des combined and non, you can kind of combine these all to make it, and we'll go over that on after I finish this. So, all right. So des, like I said, is the ending you use to a sentence. For this point, I haven't really taught you any verbs, so des is the ending you'll be using. So it stands as a verb. Namae is a name. So namae wa non desu ka? What is your name? Which I'll go over that question on, like I said, in a little. Sai is how you say years old. So Niju sai. I'm 20 years old. I'm not, but you would just use your numbers and add sai at the end. So pretty simple. There are some irregulars, but it's very few. I think there's like one particularly, and you can still say it. In fact, I actually think it is 20. Hatachi is also another way to say 20 instead of sai. But we're not going to get into that per se. If you say niju sai, they know exactly what you mean. Nensei is grade. So like obviously, I don't know how many of you guys watching this are still in school or if this is relevant, but it's a really common one. When you are in school, everyone's like, not only how old are you, but what grade are you in? It's important to them. Kind of gives them like a way to relate to you and figure out if they're your senpai or kohai and things like that. Because like I said, the hierarchy is super important in Japan. So they want to know how to address you. And so they ask questions like this. Daigaku is college. Daigaku sei is college student. Yeah, kimi no wa na wa. Oh, okay. So I can explain the title of Kimi of your name, which why Kimi no na wa is translated as your name. So namae is actually literally asking for your first name specifically. Namae is literally na is name by itself, and mae is before, so your before name, your first name. Obviously, usually it's common to do the whole thing. So you could also, let me actually, I'll edit this really quick. I am on the wrong thing. I keep seeing the stream instead of my Photoshop. So, namae is specifically for like your first name. So that's because when you introduce yourself, especially in English, you usually say your first name too, like, or at least that. Like, oh hi, I'm Simon. Oh hi, I'm Mark. You know, you say it like that. So that's where that comes from. Na, as it's told though, is still name. Generally, when you're talking to a person, you ask for namae and not na. But kimi no na wa is literally your name is what it translates as, which is why your name. We haven't gone over like a lot of pronouns yet, but kimi is one of the ways to say you. Specifically, it's a more casual way to say you. And no is shows possession. Like I said, I will go over particles at a later one too, so don't worry too much about it. And then wa is a particle as well. So if you remember, konnichiwa ended with wa and stuff too. So that's why it's like that. All right, anyways, back to the rest of this. So we are at daigaku. Daigaku is college. Daigaku sei is a student. And if you look, nen sei is, you know, what grade are you in? So there you go. For which you answer your grade. Yep, no problem. I'm here to answer questions. Koko sei is high schooler. Koko is high school. Gakko is school as a whole, but gakusei is student. So it is very common in Japanese where if things don't, like gakkosei sounds weird, they will kind of tweak words a little bit and make irregular so they sound better. It's a very common thing. So you know you'll get, I guess, used to it. Because I don't know, gakkosei sounds horrible to me personally. Gakusei sounds fine. But that's kind of why they did it for some things. It's like it's easier to say like this. It sounds better like this. All right, are there any questions with this stuff? All right, then let's go ahead and make some more questions and sentences up with these words. So I always want to write it as ha because technically it's particle ha, but it's pronounced wa. But I'll write it in wa for easier for you guys. I also guess I'll give you a couple pronouns with this so you can use them if need be. I'm going to give you the polite you and the casual you since it got brought up. There's actually several ways to say you. Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff, which I'll talk about these in a second once I get done with this. Okay, so we'll go over this part first and then I'll add some more. Watashi wa blank desu is basically I am. So, watashi wa kojika desu. I am Kojika. Watashi wa VTuber desu. I am a VTuber. 私はエルフです. I am an elf. So as you see, you can just slap a word in there. Obviously, there are Japanese words for something, so I could be like, let's see. 私はアメリカ人です. I am an American. So you can add, more in there too. 私は金髪のお姉さんです. I am a blonde big sister. But yeah, so it's pretty much, you can use it for names, you can use it for adjectives, you can use it for other descriptions of yourself, but watashi wa blank desu is a really simple way to say a sentence about yourself. Watashi is I. Anata is a formal way to say you. However, it is actually very rare that somebody says you directly to a person. And now anata is being used less because anata also has a different connotation. Depending on how you say it, it can also be like darling. Anata, darling. Like, hi honey. Anata. It's the same kind of thing. Anata wa is a little different, but so the connotation can be there. So yeah, it's something you gotta also have to walk for. Yeah, don't worry. Suisei taught us a lot about that. Kimi is a more informal way to say you, but don't ever use that with people that you want to be polite to. It's not rude, but it's not polite. It's very casual. Generally, though, like I said, you don't say you at all. I didn't put this down here, but I'm going to now. Okay. Usually, when you're talking to somebody or about somebody, it doesn't matter if you are actually, even if you don't, if you know the person, like you could say anata-san to be a little more formal and to indicate you're not calling them darling. That's okay. But you don't usually have to say you, period. If you are trying to call somebody out to name or ask something about somebody directly, you would usually use their name and san. I think most of you guys have probably heard the ending san before. It's an honorific that specifically is used to like saying, it's like saying Mr. or Miss or Mrs. or whatever. So it's a way, it's just an ending. It doesn't have a gender connotation to it whatsoever. It just gets translated like that. But it is a formal way of, it's a polite way of referring to somebody. It's not super formal, but it's polite. And so you see it used a lot. It still would be used in like business situations. But so for instance, Sanzaki Kojika is my full pen name I use here. Kojika is actually the first names because Japanese write their surnames first. Sanzaki is actually my last name. So Sanzaki-san would be, I guess, for somebody who doesn't know me at all. That sounds so weird though. Kojika-san is fine. So you could be like, Kojika-san wa Amerikajin desu ka? Is Kojika an American or are you an American? Because if it was directed like me. So instead of saying you usually say their name. And that makes it a little, I guess it's kind of weird. You don't usually use your own name in a sentence unless you're talking in the, third person or whatever. Like, Kojika really likes donuts. Kojika really likes fries. Like, that's kind of like a cutesy kid thing to do. Generally, adults don't do it. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second too. You can also go like kare, which is he, or kanojo, which is she or her. If you don't know the person, like kare wa dare desu ka? Who is he? But you can also just point and go dare desu ka? Who is that? But yeah, so speaking of how to refer to someone, you have to be very careful with how you use their names. I remember back in the day, like one of the big reasons I found this out is from the series Cardcaptor Sakura. I didn't realize how extremely using the first name, how extremely intimate that was until there's that scene when Shaoran calls Sakura by her first name for the first time. I love it. Yeah, it's a great show, and I love that scene to death. But yeah, so generally you call somebody by their last name. It doesn't matter how if you're closer with them, you can start using their first name. But you also the honorifics you use will depend on how you use it. So like Wong San. I mean, obviously I stream with too much Wong all the time, so I don't need San with him. But I could use Wong San would be his last name. Um, if I'm talking to Sakura from Cardcaptor Sakura, Kinomoto Sakura is her name, so I'd be like Kinomoto-san. If you drop san and just go like Kinomoto, which is what Shaoran, well, Shaoran actually a lot of times said Aitsu, like you, which is very rude. But it, Kinomoto, he didn't use san because they were close enough that that formality was dropped, but by using the last name still, you're putting distance between you. You could still say like Sakura-san, which is being like, hey, I'm your friend, but I'm still going to put some polite distance between us. So even though you're using the first name. And of course, there are lots of other honorifics you can use too. Chan is like a ending you usually you would use it for younger people and typically female. It's a cuter ending, but you see it a lot for like children. Yes, those. I'm going to explain them so people use them right. Because you could still use these when asking about stuff. Kun is used for somebody who's lower than you. Generally, it is used for males, but it is actually still respectful to use it like an adult using it for a high school female. What you're saying is that you're seeing them. You're not seeing them as like a cutesy child, so hence the chan isn't used. But kun is you're using it because you're setting that, hey, I understand that I'm older than you, and we're on good terms, but we're not like going to, be besties forever kind of thing. Especially because of the age gap. So there's that like nice formality there to be like, it's nothing weird, we're friends, but the age gap is still there. An example of this is actually I can give you from Fruits Baskets. I know it just got the reboot too, so I'm sure a lot of people have been watching that. Shigure, the guy who turns into the dog, always calls Honda Toru-kun. Because he's saying, yeah, we get along and we're nice to each other, but I understand there's an age gap and I'm an adult and you're a child. So that's why he does it. So kun isn't only for guys. But you'll hear it a lot used once again on young children more than anything. But you can use it on people younger than you. That doesn't go there. Sama! Those are the only ones I'm going to cover, these three, because these are like the big ones. But sama is a very formal way to refer to someone. You probably won't ever have to use this yourself because there's very rare situations this comes up for, especially as a tourist or something over there. But like you would use it, so obviously like somebody in a maid cafe would use it to kyaku-sama, to their customers. But actually people in stores, this is an example of Keigo, would still use it. Kyaku-sama, how can I help you? Because you're basically, sama is akin to putting the person up to the hierarchy of like master and servant kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are your servant per se, but that's what they're saying is they're basically like, I am treating you as if I'm nothing but a servant and you're my master. So sama is a very intense one. So yeah, there's going to be extreme situations where you use it. But even in customer service, a lot of times it's hyaku-san and not kyaku-sama. It depends on how the hierarchy in that store is. But like, for instance, I mentioned that I talked on our Keigo with the elevator lady. She was calling me kyaku-san. She was using san, not sama. Because that was not the kind of relationship you have with somebody in a grocery store. Now, like I said, a maid cafe, sama would be appropriate. Also, like the master of a house, sama would be appropriate. A lot of it is going to depend on the relationship established between you, especially like even if you have someone doing like yard work, whether they call you san or sama is going to really depend on the relationship that was established upon first meeting. If you come across as like, I'm your lord and master and you must listen to me, they're obviously going to call you sama. But if you come across as, no, I hired you for a job, you're going to do a job, they're going to do san, which, makes it a little easier and a little more friendly, but still is formal. So that's just something to watch for. All right. Woo. So we got that. So we have some sentence structure going. We can still continue with this. So I gave you these because you can still use them with other sentences too. So we talked about sai. You could say sensei sama, but that's really weird. Usually you would just use sensei by itself. Sensei is just, the title. Technically, sensei is the title for somebody who's an authority figure above you. Obviously, it's used as teacher a lot because your sensei they know the subject matter and you don't. But you use it for doctors as well because they know the subject matter, you don't. You would also use it for like master paintings or use it for mangaka, actually, like writers of manga. You call them sensei. Like authors and stuff and artists, you call them sensei. So it's used for any kind of authority figure. Now, that would not mean you go in and if you're under training for a job, you would call your boss sensei per se. Like that would be kind of weird. But you would usually refer to them as san or senpai. Actually, that's where the senpai kohai stuff comes in. Which I'm not going to write these down, but sensei is teacher, senpai is somebody who's above you. But the reason, and then kohai is somebody who's below you. The reason that there's such a difference between them, sensei is somebody who's above you enough that they're an authority figure on the subject and they're teaching you, or you don't understand it. Senpai is somebody who is going to be technically around the same level. They just have more experience or are older in the subject matter. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're, proficient, but they know more than you. Kohai is, which you don't usually call somebody kohai. You would refer to them as like, this is my kohai. You don't usually go like, kohai, come here, kohai. You'd still refer to them by name. But kohai is used for like somebody beneath you. Like, yeah, so upperclassmen is one way to translate senpai, but that's not always true because, like I said, in a business situation, you would still use senpai for somebody who's been working at the job longer than you. Kohai is the same. It's, I guess, like underclassmen if you're in school. If you're in a job, it's just somebody, that you're training or hasn't been working. So that's why these have a little trickier translations. And that's why they're often left in Japanese in general, because most of you guys have an understanding of what they are. Titles get left in Japanese a lot because it's hard to translate. There's no actual like legit English equivalent for a lot of them. But yeah, so watashi wa blank sai desu is how you'd say I am so and so years old. So watashi wa 20 sai desu. I am 20 years old, which I said is not true, but I'll say it anyways. I wish I was 20. Again. It was 21 when my health started taking a turn for the worse, so. But yeah, so we mentioned, already we looked at the question for this, so I'll go ahead and add we looked at the question word. Okay, so nensei. Why did I go nensei? Nansai. Sorry, I jumped ahead to the nensei. We're not there yet. Nansai is what I wanted. Nansai desu. Ka. So you've probably noticed this with some of the question words I've already done. Ka at the end makes it a question. Yeah, I jumped ahead on myself. So Japanese don't actually like use question marks. I know I'm writing it here, but they use just periods for the most part. Like, obviously you see it in manga and stuff, but like when they're just writing stuff out, they don't really use questions. So ka becomes like the question mark is what it does. Desu ka? It becomes the question. It makes it into a question. So nansai is how old are you? Like I said, sai is how you end it. You'll notice that if you slap, like if you have one of these words that ends in like G or sai where it has to have a number in front of it, you can just say non and ask, make it a question. So it's pretty simple. So like I said, nani is what, but non is still what. It just specifically has to be attached to like an ending like that. That makes sense? All right, I'm going to go ahead and say these one more time, and then I'm going to go to the other questions that we just covered, or with the other words we just covered. Watashi wa blank desu. Watashi, anata, kimi, kare, kanojo, san, chan, kun, sama. Watashi wa blank sai desu. Nansai desu ka? Let me find where this started. Woo! Okay. Now we also have my name is Des. My name is Des. These sentences are getting too long. So like I said, these kind of questions have more to do with trying to figure out like because it's very big on Japanese to make sure that they're like talking to you guys on the right level or talking to each other on the right level. So Watashi no namae wa blank desu. Watashi wa blank desu. My name is. So you don't necessarily have to have no namae in here. You could also just say namae wa blank desu. It really depends, but if somebody specifically comes up to you and goes, Namae wa nan desu ka? What is your name? You don't need to reiterate namae. In fact, you don't even need to say watashi because you know they're talking to you. You know they're talking about your name. So all you need to do is answer. But if you're introducing yourself to somebody, it's probably not bad to be like, Hajimemashite. Watashi no namae wa Kojika desu. Dozo yoroshiku. So if to translate that, it's nice to meet you. My name is Kojika. Please take care of me from now on. So that's kind of how a Jiko Shokai or self-introduction would go. You'd start with Hajimemashite, nice to meet you. You'd say your name, maybe some things about you, and then you'd end it with Dozo Yoroshiku. But yeah, in that case, saying, Watashi no namae makes sense because you're indicating that's your name. Yeah, you have to be nice when you introduce yourself. Honestly, I speak a lot of slang when I do Japanese, but I don't know how to do the polite one. I just, when I first started learning Japanese, I started learning it from shonen manga and light novels, fantasy light novels. So I was a little deranged. All right. Watashi wa blank no blank nensei desu. I am in blank grade in blank, which is specifically your school. So I could be like, obviously I'm out of school. I graduated already, but let's say I'm going to be. Well, I guess before I go too far in this, let me tell you, their schooling is different than ours in the U.S. I can't say about everywhere else in the world because I know some other countries do follow their type of schooling. So for them, they don't really have kindergarten. They have like you go to like a daycare or something, which is pretty much the same. They translate them as kindergarten a lot in English, but it's just more like how some of us had preschool. Like I went through preschool. That kindergarten would be in that same level too. So their elementary school is basically first grade to sixth grade. Their middle school is seventh. Wait. To ninth. Yeah, seventh to ninth grade. And high school is 10th to 12th. So it's only 3 years for each of those. And I didn't mention it, but Gaku is middle school. Yeah, we survived too. That's right. The warning's over. I didn't even leave. But like I said, I'm far enough from Windows. I wasn't worried. And I didn't lose power. Tornado warning over. Yay! Huzzah! But so if I'm gonna say I'm in 8th grade, you have to be a little more specific. Like you can still say I'm in 8th grade in middle school because for us, kindergarten through 5th was elementary, 6th through 8th was middle, and 9th through 12th was high school. I do know there were some schools in the past in this area that actually had 9th in middle school as well. So if I'm going to say I'm in 8th grade, that would technically, I could literally still say, Watashi wa chugako no hachi nensei desu. I am in 8th grade in middle school. I could still say that. Like, and they would mostly understand that in Japanese. Like I said, it's their schooling is different, but they could figure it out because they still have 8th grade. It's just considered second year at middle school. So instead, it would be better to say, Watashi wa chugako no 2 nensei desu. I am a second year at middle school. So yeah, it would be, 1 through 6, and then 1 through 3, and then 1 through 3 again. Non-nensei desu ka? What grade are you in? So yeah, basically, when it comes to like the grade thing, especially, it gets a little more complicated because their schooling is different. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. So I just want to teach you a couple more simple phrases to use that are good.
Mo gucha gucha da yo.
Izuru! I didn't do anything wrong. Don't yell at me. Yeah, I mean, that was listed in that thing, so hopefully. Let's see. Is there any other ones I really want to use? I think that's probably good for now. We don't have much time left anyway, so I'll just go through these three. Okay. So desu ka, or so ka if you're being more informal. It's kind of like saying, is that so? Or I see. So like you would use it in a situation where, like, for instance, when I was talking about their schooling being different, if you weren't 100% aware of that, but you understood what I said, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I see. Is that so? So desu ka. Like, you're not asking for, like, you're not saying I don't understand. You're literally saying, oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me, kind of thing. You can still use it for things that, like, you don't necessarily you wouldn't necessarily understand it, but maybe stuff that you didn't know and aren't 100% sure if it's true. So like yeah, kind of like, oh really? Except for in this case, you're not really not believing them per se, you are believing them. Unless you're trying to be sarcastic. But usually you would use a different word for being sarcastic in Japanese with that. So it's like I said, it's a little their language is a lot about subtleties. Now another good one, wakarimasu. Wakarimasu. I understand. Wakarimasen. I don't understand. Those are actually both from the same verb. It's just conjugated different ways, which conjugation would be something on a much later level if I keep doing these streams. I might. This one seemed to have gone over pretty well, so. But yeah, these are just like some basic phrases that are good to get yourself around when you're talking to people and you don't know them. There is obviously a lot more I could teach you and a lot more that you'll need to learn, but there's some basic words to get you started. I think out of all the words we learned today, sumimasen is the most important, so make sure you learn that one fast. Any questions over these three? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say them again. So desu ka? Wakarimasu. Wakarimasen. Wakatteru is technically I understand as well, but it's actually more informal and it's a different conjugation. To put it simply without explaining grammar, it's in the plain form. And if you can say verbs in the plain form, like wakaru, wakaru, like I get it, but it's a little more informal that way. So wakarimasu is like the polite way to say it. In fact, wakatteru is almost like saying, I get it. Why do you keep telling me this? I know this. So it's a little even rougher than wakaru, but they're the same word. It's just conjugated differently. The te form of verbs is really complex. So, in fact, that's actually the student that I am. I've been tutoring him for like 5 or 6 years now, and he's really good with kanji, but he has some trouble with some of the like he's really good at conjugating verbs too. But we're on te form right now, and we've been on te form for like a year because there's so much to go over for te form, and I don't see him every week. So, especially during the pandemic, I hardly saw anyone. So, all right. So, with that, I just wanted to ask you guys how things went. If there was anything you thought I should do differently, when would you be interested in coming to more like these? Good, good. I wanted to make it seem really relaxed. I actually, as a teacher, I teach a lot of children, so I pride myself in being able to have people be able to relax while learning. Yay! That's good. That's good. I'll probably try to do more. That's good. That's good. Oh, and the other thing I was gonna do, of course, I was gonna give you guys some references. So some good things to look into. For textbooks, I am not. Oh, yeah, I totally picked the weather. What did you forget, RTD? Eh? Oh, but anyways, so I really like the Genki textbook. It is one of the best ones out there, I think. It's called Genki, Genki. There's at least two of them. I actually have PDF of them. It's what I use to tutor from as a basis. I used to write my own lessons, which isn't bad, but I found that using, a book that has workbook pages and stuff already set up for it, and I even have the CD files for it for like the listening comprehension is really good. So definitely a good one to look into. Mina no Nihongo, Minna, no Nihongo is another good one. It's not bad. It's not as good, I think, but it's also another one. They tend to use it, I think, more for teaching American student, like English speaking. Yeah, it literally means everyone's Japanese. But they use those. When I was in Japan studying, we used a combination of Genki and Mina no Nihongo. But I feel like it was very good for people who had some Japanese knowledge. So I feel it's a little more complex than Genki at times. Uh, Avoid the book Nakama, which is the word for like comrade, or if you know One Piece, he uses Nakama all the time. But good. Genki's a good one. But yeah, Nakama was horrible. That's the one I student taught with, and it was god awful. Because after I went through college, I got through high school and college early and had credit from Japanese. It was a weird situation. I took Japanese in college while I was in high school, but so I was the student teacher for Japanese while I was in college, and Nakama was the book they used, and I just wanted to yeet that book out the window all the time. Um, for apps, Wani Kani is really good for when you start learning kanji, but don't pick it up until you're ready for kanji. So you can get it for free for a certain point and then it's paid after that, but it's definitely worth it. Wani Kani literally means alligator crab. They also do like the same people who produce it. I'm blanking on their name, but they do like a podcast which has some interesting Japanese cultural things on it too. I think the older ones were more interesting when they had the crazy people on them, which I know sounds weird, but they're almost too normal now, so they're not as fun to listen to. Duolingo isn't bad per se. My issues with it is I feel it doesn't walk you through the basics early enough. Like everyone I know who's used it, and even when I tried to use it to just test it out, it was like, by the way, we're gonna start throwing verbs at you, but we didn't teach you what this verb meant. And I thought that was a problem. So I think you have to have a basic understanding of Japanese before you practice it too. What is it? Oh, what is the other one? Rosetta Stone is actually fair. It is obviously more pricey, but I had one of my students who was using Rosetta Stone, so I got to see it through him. He liked it, and it taught him enough of the basics. But I think it also suffered from some of the same issues with Duolingo, where it started throwing stuff at you too fast. Yeah, I know. I had people talking with Duolingo with the kanji. Yeah, that's the problem. I feel like it tries to throw stuff at you before you know it. So yeah, those are some good. Obviously, if you you guys can contact me through like Twitter or stuff if you have more questions. I'll probably be doing more of these streams, and I will put the VOD up on archive on YouTube. I'm also active in the Discord that I share with Cosplaying Kitten, which it shared the link several times during the stream. So you're welcome to join that. And if you want to talk about things, always message me. I'll try to find more resources for next time too. I'm really sad. There was a game I was trying to kickstart, which unfortunately did not get kickstarted all the way, but it was really cool because it was basically teaching you Japanese, but it also had like hiragana and stuff. So I really wanted to. It is still getting made. I'm following it along with it. So when that one's out, I will definitely promote that one because it looks so cool. And I know from teaching people that I find that most of you guys and myself too learn better through like experience and something that's fun to remember. So obviously, like reading manga and stuff is really easy too. It is really good too, but start with simple stuff and don't worry too much about it. For hiragana, flashcards are definitely a good thing to help you. When I was learning it too, we played a little game with it, which if you have other people learning it, great, it's a good thing to do. We would put them down and on the ground face up and basically kind of like Hanafuda, where you just like slap the card that has the right answer. We got a little violent at times, and so Kitten, myself, and my little sister, Chibiko, would sometimes, kind of beat each other up by slapping our hands too hard. But, I feel like the flashcard thing is good. It's also good to learn stroke order, which isn't as important for hiragana and katakana, but for kanji definitely. And stroke order, for the most part, will be taught. If you guys get the Genki book, it shows you the stroke order when it's teaching you hiragana. So start with hiragana first, and then go to katakana, and then kanji is the way you should do it. I went katakana first, actually, so hiragana was super easy for me because hiragana is much easier than katakana. All right, any other questions? I used to hate kanji, but I actually really like it now because without it, some of the sentences look really weird. And there's so many words that have multiple meanings, so the kanji, or like, they're said the same way, so the kanji helps to differentiate it. Ah, thank you for the apple! Bits. Alright, I'm gonna turn off this music I had on this whole time. Yeah. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. Like I said, I will look into doing more of these. I'll probably try to do them like once a month, just like the karaoke, but probably like midday times versus karaoke, which is at night. And obviously, I don't plan on doing them on the same day either because this is a lot of work. But you guys have topics or stuff that you'd like me to cover, just feel free to like drop them on me, however you have contact for me, and that's fine. We'll look over them. Like I said, feel free to join the Discord or follow me on Twitter and ask questions, or even on Twitch. And we'll keep these up then. I'll do is schedule a second one for sometime in July, I guess. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a good day.